Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Health Mastery for Leaders with Dr. Donahue, our online live doc show, where we show up 2 or 3 times a week. And all of you know I'm either with a speaker who is like rock star amazing, who gets to share their wisdom and what's happening for them and what they're working on in this world, and all the individuals that we actually have on our platform are really looking to save lives one step at a time. So if you're live with us today, please drop a link. Please let us know where you're from. And this talk is all about anxiety detox. And I want you to all be welcome to Stacey Brake. Stacey is a colleague of mine, and she's a mental health educator and coach. She has over 17 years of wisdom, right? Which is so important around anxiety and mental health. And she is going to talk about her approach around anxiety detox. So let's welcome Stacey. And Stacey's going to talk a little bit about her story and introduce herself. So let's welcome Stacey and let's go. What's going on for you, Stacey? Welcome.
I love it. Thank you so much, Dr. Donahue. What a beautiful introduction. And what a joy and a pleasure to be here to talk to you and your friends today. It's so funny, as you were talking, you were like 17 years of wisdom. And I thought that's really a beautiful way to say 17 years of like hard work and being in the trenches and like just seeing like the messy pieces of life and figuring out how to deal with it. So I think that's that's how I think of it. But yeah, really great to connect. Really glad to be here. Like you said, my background is mental health. I worked in a number of different settings, the Rape Crisis Center. I did intensive in-home services. I worked as a counselor in schools for a while. And then, had this, experience of seeing the increases in anxiety and just really wanting to find what were the real solutions, what was going to work for somebody that they could take and do on their own. And the main reason that was important was because we know that 63% of people diagnosed with anxiety will never, ever go get help. So they're just going to grin and bear it. They're going to deal with it. That's just the people who are diagnosed, right? About 100% of us at some point are going to face anxiety, in some way, shape, or form, even if it isn't debilitating, even if it doesn't prevent us from living our life, it may prevent us from living in the moment in our life and really experiencing the joy and the peace and the freedom that we all deserve. So it became important for me to figure out how to empower others, how to give those tools to people so that they can just take it on their own and go, I got this. I can figure this out. I know exactly how to solve these problems. So that was really what inspired me to create Anxiety Detox. It's been a couple of years now, and I'm just really enjoying it. I have individuals who've gone through the program, and then even some schools and school districts have given it to their staff as a wellness benefit for the educators who we all know have been really under a lot of stress in the past few years. So it's been really great to be on this journey and to continue moving on.
Yeah, and just like welcome Stacey with the work that she's doing. And those of you that are online with us right now, we apologize. The link was incorrect. It said 4 p.m., but we'll send the replay out in email, and we'll send it to Stacey. But what I want to say is, if it's not yourself, or if it's somebody around you that is suffering from anxiety, and it's not about admitting it, because we have to understand we're not broken. We don't need to be fixed. There just may be reasons as to why we're feeling like this elevation of emotions and we don't know what to do with them. So if you know yourself suffering, please put A in the chat. We have no judgment. We just want to know that we can help you. And or if you know somebody else that is suffering, and maybe it's a friend or a family member, let us know that as well. And so we're going to start really doing a deep dive into Stacey's anxiety detox. And as questions come up for you, how we're going to go through this and make this an easy process, let us know your questions. And then at the end, myself as a commentator will go back and ask Stacey questions so she can 100% focus on what her gift is, and she doesn't have to, because we get to speak from our heart, and that's where our gift is, instead of focusing on what people are saying. So if we start getting out of our game, we can all be anxious too, right? I mean, we've all suffered a little bit of anxiety and nervousness. And so I love the work that you're doing in this world. So if you could share with us a little bit about, like, how would one go about, I'll use the word conquering, like, anxiety in their mindset, and kind of take us in a stepwise fashion of like what that looks like and how you work with somebody in that avenue.
Absolutely. So, one of the things I found, lots of people have tried a lot of things, to feel less anxious, right? We see meditations for anxiety. There's all kinds of, journals and so on, and they're all wonderful tools. I think people have tried to manage their anxiety and it didn't work and they felt defeated. And so what I realized is that the reason for that is there's really three keys. Anxiety is a little bit like trying to nail Jello to the wall. It looks a little bit different for everybody. It comes from different places. And so in order to really like conquer it as a whole, you really have to understand and know all three of the keys. And the first is our mind. And this is where most people focus, right? The worried thoughts, the mind shifts, those kinds of things. Most of us focus there when we want to manage our anxiety. So we want to figure out how to change our thoughts, how to change our mind, how to stop the worried thoughts so that we can rest and those kinds of things. And that is really important. That's just one of the keys, though. And so if you're just focusing on that, you may not find the success that you're looking for. And so then we want to think about, well, what are the other two keys? Like, what else is there to know? And so the second place that we talk about is in our body. So there's more and more research that's showing how anxiety is stored in our bodies, how trauma affects us long term, and can kind of resurface as anxiety or depression or a number of other things. But when we talk about anxiety in particular, it's a very important key. So we want to learn some strategies, not just to change our mind, but to release the trauma that we have stored in our bodies so that we can have that next level of freedom. And then the final piece is our gut health. And this is another one that, research is coming in more and more and more. And again, not just anxiety, but there's so many other things that are affected when we have poor gut health. So the first thing we have to do is just be educated, right? To understand, how the neuroscience works, how, what we know about trauma research, what we know about gut health, and what we know about shifting, our mental states, and get all three of those flowing in tangent. If you have all three of, the tools for each of those buckets, and you can implement them at any time, you can be free. You can conquer your anxiety just by knowing those three things and then having the tools to move forward.
Yeah, and I love this, like the word free. Who wants to be free of anxiety? Everybody, like, or any sort of I don't love the word mental, but we all use it, but a mental like hold that's on us that we can't release stops us from being like the healthiest version of ourselves. It stops us from stepping into our vision.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And I see this every day with patients, as Stacey is saying, and it's like, if you don't have tools and strategies, and or in my avenue, hormones are off, the gut is off, you've had a severe challenge, whether it's a death or something takes you into that space and time. And then that emotion kicks in, whether it's depression, whether it's anxiety. And it's that neuroprogramming that you're talking about, I think, that is so important. Not only that, but that those emotions stay in our tissues. So I believe when Stacey's talking about anxiety detox, it's moving it through the body. Is that correct?
Exactly. Exactly. I love how you put it.
Yeah, so so body work is also important. So when you work with a practitioner like Stacey and you're moving through things, like make sure you have other support as well. And or how many of you on here or that are listening to this are high functioning?
Yeah.
Anxiety. Let's speak a little bit about that because I actually see that more than, Dr. Donahue, I'm like anxious and I don't know what to do. So let's
Yeah.
talk a little bit about the high functioning piece of it and how people kind of undermine that in their mind.
Yeah. Yeah. It's so many different things that I'm thinking about there. But the number one thing is that, people who have high functioning anxiety on the outside, they get it all together. They're achieving on a high level, they're keeping things together in their family, they've got a career, they've got all the boxes checked, right? So somebody from the outside would look at them and say they're successful, they're happy, they've got it together. I've talked to those women and they say, you know what, I should feel happy and I don't. I should feel free and I don't. I but I feel like, what they're actually feeling, what's actually going on inside is like, number one, I feel like a complete mess, and that at any moment, it's going to crack and everybody's going to see. And number two, like, how long can I keep this going? How long can I keep this up? They're typically the ones that everybody else depends on, everybody else counts on, because they know they're going to be there, they're going to show up, they're going to be on time, they're going to bring the thing. It's not something that you can see from the outside, right? So high functioning anxiety really describes the people who are feeling it on the inside, keeping it together on the outside, doing a lot of things, even a lot of things that we're told should get rid of anxiety, right? Like exercising, and those are great things, but just still having that lingering, nagging sense of feeling anxious, feeling uncomfortable, and not feeling that freedom.
Yeah, what's coming up for me right now as you're talking is one of the things that so many individuals don't know with the natural wellness, like you're talking about, is the first thing they do is they're like, okay, like I'll go to my PCP. I'm not feeling like my best self. I'm feeling like my heart's fluttering. I'm feeling like my brain is like kind of going off like in tangents that like I have ADHD, and we create all these labels. And at the end of the day, like the primary care physician, the tool, and again, all of you know that, listen, like I love my medical world. If I get hit by a car, like I want to be on board with that.
Yeah.
But like Stacey and I work with individuals that aren't ready for like an anxiolytic, like a drug to actually take them out. And the sad part about the drug is after a while, it often stops working. But that's what we're prescribed in our world. It's like if you have anxiety, you go to your primary care physician, they look at all the I mean, how many of this has happened to people? They look at all the labs, they don't pull your hormones, they don't talk about your stress levels. We have 15 minutes with them for the insurance to be covered. And then they send you on your way and they say you're fine. And you walk out of the office going, like, really, what just happened? Because they don't feel fine. I don't feel like I felt like 10 years ago, or when I first got married, or when I first had my child and then my hormones changed, or, I don't know what the circumstance is for you, but I want to share with you that your feelings are real.
Mm-hmm.
And the emotions that you're experiencing are real. And you get to reach out to individuals like Stacey and myself that can help take you to that other side of letting go of that emotion. So I don't know if you want to talk a little bit about that sort of connection, because I know that's like, and we don't have enough mental health practitioners.
No, we don't. Yeah, so we don't have enough mental health practitioners. Most people, and also guilty, right? We wait until it's a true emergency, right? I did this with a physical issue years ago. Went for a run, had a little misstep, started to have these weird sensations in my lower back, and it wasn't painful.
Mm-hmm.
And then it was a little bit painful, but it wasn't debilitating, right? So I kept like, I'll do ibuprofen and I'll stretch. I'll do ibuprofen and I'll walk. I'll do yoga. I'll do whatever, and I'll just be fine. And after a couple of years, I was like, wait, this is not going away. And so I finally went to a chiropractor and a physical therapist. And, it was like that, it was what they were able to do for me was so much more healing than what I was trying to do on my own. And I learned, what I was doing, when I was trying to stretch it, they were like, no, you need to release it first, right? There's all these other things. And it was like, oh, just knowing that one simple thing made all the difference. And I think, we're all guilty of that, like, because we don't want to put our lives on hold to go get help, to go talk about our problems, right? Like, it's all these reasons to not do it. But, one of the reasons is it's hard to get in to see a therapist. It's hard to find that person that you connect with. It's hard to, take time off of work and find a place for the kids. So it can be really tricky. One of the things I've heard, I've heard some stirrings of in the mental health world is that, we're going to start to think about how can we train our communities to take care of each other, right? So that we can move beyond that. And I think, in a sense, that's what anxiety detox is about. It's like, here, take these tools. You've got what you need. You have the capabilities to heal. Just need a little bit of information, a little bit of guidance.
Yeah, and I think that's so important, like community. Like, let's stop and talk about really briefly, and I could run statistics, and I'm sure you can call them out, which so that our analyzers can hear the statistics. You had talked a few in the beginning, but nobody wants to talk about this anymore. But we just went through a massive, and we're still going through it, a massive up level in our world. It wasn't just the US, it wasn't just Russia, it wasn't just Uzbekistan, it wasn't just Ukraine, it wasn't just China. Like, it was the entire world was shut down and put on hold.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, I'm in my 50s and I'll never see that in my lifetime again. But what it did was it left so many people in fear and anxiety and depression. Yeah. And like, if we look at the mental health, even depression, but this talk is about anxiety, the staggering numbers right now is incredible. So one of the reasons I know I took myself into group healing and wellness is because I just can't take on everybody. I'm so busy in my clinic and online. And this is why I love talking to individuals like Stacey that are stretching out into community, because we know having community and connection like we're doing right now, like, I love meeting people like this because that is accountability and healing. And so community and guidance is really what God put us on this earth for. He did not put us on this earth to be completely afraid that a virus is going to take us down and take us out of our game. Like, that was not a safety net he talked about. I don't want to get into like Bible and all that, but I probably could go pretty deep right now. But really, he put us in this world to create community. And so finding community and love, like, talk a little bit about that, like the statistics that help support that anxiety piece.
Yeah. So one of the lies about, that we tell ourselves in our minds about anxiety or depression or any other, thing that we would label ourselves as a flaw, right, is that we're alone. And so one of the magic ingredients of a community is removing that isolation, removing that feeling of being alone or being wrong or being weird or being broken. Like I love that you used that word earlier. That's one of my favorite things to talk about. You're not broken. If you feel anxious, it's not because you're broken, it's because things are working and there's something that we need to give attention and love to and to take care of so that you can find that freedom, right? And doing that in community, holding that space for each other, is really a powerful way to, number one, immediately remove that isolation, and then number two, to grow together. There's like healing power in the community itself. So anyway, I don't know of any like particular statistics that I can give you right offhand, but I've seen the power of it, and I know that community is beautiful in terms of a space for healing and a space for growth and development.
Yeah, and so it's the amazing thing is that like you're not alone.
Mm-hmm.
You're not alone because I can say that from my knowledge that about 19% of the population, that's 40 million people, age 18 and older, are diagnosed with anxiety, some sort of anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
And that's just, and then the diagnosis that I see often when they come to me from another practitioner is the general anxiety disorder.
Yeah.
I'm sure that you don't. Do you do ICD-10 codes?
I don't.
Okay. So that's like a coding that is coded on a patient's medical chart. So that's 3.1% of the population that just generally they have anxiousness. And it's women are more affected than men. And sometimes they'll say that anxiety will often be a co-occurrence with a major depressive disorder. And then there's probably about, I think it's like 15 million or so that actually have social anxiety disorder.
Mm-hmm.
Like these numbers are staggering, you guys that are listening.
Yeah.
And then, there's OCD, which is like, I think that was like 2% of the population. So, like, we're labeling right here, and I'm labeling on purpose so that you can hear the labels that we're using. But at the end of the day, like Stacey said, something is magnified that is causing you to feel this accelerated emotional response, which is more accelerated than I might feel if a situation happens. It could be hormone related, it could be gut health related, it could be situational. But the truth is that there's support for all of you out there. And like, how much longer are you going to lone wolf it and try to just be like, there's something wrong with me? There's nothing wrong with you.
No. And I think, even when we look at those statistics, women are more likely to talk to their doctors about it. So I think there is a huge number of men who are suffering in silence, who won't go get those diagnoses. And it may look different, right? I think men can tend to be more like their expression of anxiety is more like irritability, right? It's more the fight or flight side of it. Whereas sometimes women can be, it's not really fair to put them in different buckets because like in men and in women, you'll see both types. But that's where they start to see like, this is a problem because I'm snapping at everybody, right? And that's one of those hidden signs of anxiety, people being irritable and grouchy and just short fused, right?
Absolutely. And men are wired differently than women. So when they see that anxious sort of feeling, like I'm working with a male right now and taking him all the way back to his childhood. And his biggest fear is that because of what happened to his dad, and I don't want to give any identifying factors, and to his brother, his concern is that it may happen to him. And guess what? He won't be able to provide for his family.
Yeah.
So that's if we look at how men are wired and how women are wired. And when you spoke a lot about the women's sense and doing all the things and the high functioning, to me, that's like women as a supporter.
Yeah.
Like they're supporting and they're holding everything up and they're going to do everything. But there comes a time when you just can't do it anymore. But yet you have done it for so long and you just don't know a way out, and Stacey's here to talk about that way out. So if we take a few minutes, let's just stop and see if there's any questions. um it looks like there's a proponent of you that somebody's proud of your anxiety detox program in the school districts.
Oh.
Yeah, so that's fantastic. And every life that Stacey changes and touches, like that's powerful. Because
Mm.
every time we heal a child or an adult, they get to pass that on. So is there any questions right now coming up before I ask Stacey some techniques and strategies or how she would walk through an individual? Is anything coming up for anybody right now? I just kind of want to open the lines for those that are live, and those that are not live, feel free to leave comments and my team will check the comments. Okay, so it looks like we don't have any questions right now. So what I would love the audience to hear is like, maybe like when you start working with an individual, kind of what does that look like? And what sort of, like, I'll just use a strategy or technique. I don't love that. I call it a customized treatment plan for them. And then you work in community. So whatever your words are, if you could walk us through that so people get it.
Yeah. 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 So, the first thing we always want to do is start with awareness, so if we can do some tracking of, when it's coming up for you, what is your experience of anxiety? Like we said already, it's different for different people. Some people feel more irritable. Some people feel more like paralyzed with fear. They have that indecision. So we really have to figure that piece out. What does it look like and where is it coming from? And then we want to dive into building in some of those new habits, right? Anxiety can actually be a habit in our brains, right? In our bodies. And so we want to start to engage in some new habits that are going to shift those feelings, right? Set us up for feeling less anxious, find more opportunities for joy. I love to find something that's going to work quick right away, because that's what we need at first, right? We need something that's just going to be quick and easy and like can get us going and give us a quick win. And so one of my favorite quick techniques comes from what we've learned in neuroscience. So we know that our inhale is intimately connected with our sympathetic nervous system. And we can know that that's true because, and sympathetic nervous system is the fight or flight, right? So we can know that that's true. If someone ever sneaks up behind you and startles you, what do? You gasp, you inhale very quickly, and that's your body's natural way to activate that fight or flight, right? So we also know that our exhale is intimately connected to our parasympathetic nervous system, the rest and digest side. So if ever you're feeling that little anxiety or that anxious feelings kicking in, you can use that to your advantage, that little bit of information, and you can say, okay, now I'm going to exhale, and I'm going to extend that exhale out for as long as I can, and that's going to help me favor my parasympathetic nervous system. And so and we know too, right? Like if somebody is experiencing anxiety, they're more likely breathing more shallow and more, more of that, like favoring the inhale, right? Because this is all your body's natural response. So you can kind of shift that on its head. Take an inhale, exhale longer. I always teach 5-10 breathing. I've taught this to 5-year-olds and I've taught this to 75-year-olds, right? And it's, you just inhale for 5 and exhale for 10. And maybe on the first time you're like, I can't go all the way to 5 and 10. That's okay. The key really, it could be 2 and 4, right? You just want that exhale to be longer. I've used that standing in the grocery store line when I'm feeling like impatient or like I'm in a hurry. I've got so many things to do, right? Like this is where that starts to build in our heads. I can slow it right down. And it's not, nobody has to know, right? Like you can just, we're all breathing all the time. So if you can use that to your advantage, you can get a quick win and then start to feel a little more calm.
Love that. And that is a technique that everybody listening can easily just start doing like right away. It's like I have my patients actually put the word breathe on their computer, or like I remember when I was first in, learning natural medicine for myself before I was a practitioner, I would put it up when I brushing my teeth, breathing my teeth, brushing my teeth. I put it on my refrigerator. I'd have it in my car when I used to commute a long distance, until I started to integrate that rest and digest sort of like breathing energy. And that's a tool that everybody can use.
Yeah.
Like Stacey uses it in the grocery store. Or how many times maybe you're late for something or you hit traffic, it's like after a while you just get to release. Is it worth it to be in that fight or flight and be worried about it and stopping you living your life when there's really nothing that you can do about it? Like it's not worth it for the body. It's not worth it for your energy. It's not, your nervous system, people don't teach us this, but we only have one nervous system in one body. And if you keep stretching and stretching and stretching and stretching those nerves, eventually they're just not going to like want to activate, and they're not going to want to fire the way that they used to fire, because we've overused them in that sympathetic go run state. So is there anything else that you want to like let the audience know that they could start using right away? If not, like we'll jump into your free gift and what that looks like and how you can support with a free gift.
Yeah. So my other favorite, and it usually takes a little bit longer to teach this for someone to use independently, but you can Google it, and there are YouTube videos of all kinds of people who do this. But it's EFT, or emotional freedom technique, or tapping. There's all these different words for it.
Yeah.
But essentially, what we're doing is we're tapping on these different points in our body that are going to help us, send those soothing signals to our brain. And we do that while we're focusing on something that stresses us out, right? So it gives our brain that opportunity to reframe it, to look at it in a new way, to look at it in a slightly more objective way, right? Not so emotionally involved in it. So that, I would say, easy to look up, emotional freedom technique or tapping. And you can even say tapping for anxiety. There's all kinds of videos.
Yeah.
That is one that, I teach that in my program, but it has been a game changer for so many people that I've worked with, that, they go through the whole program, they learn all the strategies, all the techniques, and they're like, what I use all the time? Tapping.
Don't you love that? You're like, I'll teach everything, but I just go back to breathing and tapping.
And that's the thing, like you want to take them all in and then figure out what truly works for you. But that has been one that, some people have found just so much great success with, and so much joy from. So.
Yeah.
So that's
And
fun.
an audience asked, somebody in the audience asked, could you give us a brief description of the science of EFT? Like just really general, like what that looks like what is that? Why does it work?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's one of those things. So Chinese acupuncture,
Yeah.
really, really highlighted these different areas of the body as meridians for acupuncture.
Yeah.
And then, at some point, I think it was in the 90s, someone realized, you could experience those same calming effects by just tapping on those places instead of having to put needles there. And so they found that more appealing and started to practice it and teach it. And because basically what's happening in our body when we tap on these different meridians or these different points, which, by the way, when someone first started to talk about that, it was like, you're insane.
Yeah.
And then, right.
Kind of like acupuncture, like why would I put a needle in a meridian? A what? Why do I want to drive my chi and do what? What's chi?
Right. And so maybe just to like prove them wrong, right? Science came along and there's research experiments, and lo and behold, it does work, right? There is some connection there. And anyway, and so essentially what's happening is this tapping on these different points is overriding that system in your brain that's sending it to fight or flight. So you can still concentrate on that information. And now it's basically going to shift it to the frontal, prefrontal cortex. So this frontal lobe where we can be a little more rational, a little more objective, and we can reintegrate our emotional experience to it, and then go from there. So I hope that helps, but it's really quite fascinating. And I think that research is continuing to be done to, help us understand exactly why and how that works. I don't know if you follow Dr. Bessel van der Kolk. You're familiar with him.
Yeah, exactly.
He also teaches EMDR, which is another one that I love. And he says, I started using it and it was working. And so even though the scientific community had not caught up yet, I don't care. I want to use what's working. And now, if you look around, it's everywhere. The research is everywhere. The science is everywhere. And it's kind of what happened with EFT, but EFT is a little bit sooner than that. So anyway.
NLP was a big one too, the neuro-linguistic programming, like, oh, that's no Joe, that's no go, and so these are all different techniques that we're talking about here that are super resourceful that you can learn on your own. No, sorry, learn with a practitioner and then do it on your own at times. EMDR might be a little bit difficult to do, but what EMDR's thought is it's that noise. It's like changing the programming in your brain. So it's either noise or it's a little bit of a sound activation, and it's changing how the neurons are actually firing to, maybe it's to release an abuse situation, maybe it's to change how your anxiety is acting up. So the practitioner will take you through that. There are so many amazing techniques out there, even including like acupuncture. Like we were laughing, but like I remember years ago when I would go get acupuncture in my 20s, people were like, "You're doing what?" You know what I'm saying? And it was so foreign.
Yeah.
And it was like Stacey used the example of she had a little bit of pain and she waited too long before she went to the chiropractor, and it was super easy. Why I'm sharing these is, again, I want to circle back around to all of you that are struggling with pain, struggling with emotions, and or like not feeling like your best self. Like you're not alone.
Yeah.
And just because one practitioner couldn't support you or didn't know how or didn't have their tools, so many people get angry. Like, I went to see this and I went to see that and they didn't do anything. So I'm just going to suffer the rest of my life.
Yeah.
I'm telling you right now, that's being a victim. And I love all of you that are on here. You do not have to be a victim.
Right.
You get to have help. And I know that you have all gone through some difficult times. And my heart is there. That's why I love doing what I do. And I'm sure this is why Stacey loves doing what she does. But please reach out and get help
Yeah.
and support. You don't have to do this by yourself, because what begins to happen is you begin to alienate yourself, or you begin to stay home because your anxiety is magnified so much, or your husband or your wife or your partner or your children are like, I'm staying away from him or her when she goes into that state because like I don't know how to handle, like that's her. Like
Yeah.
no, we're put in this earth, like we were talking about earlier, community for love and support. We don't want to lone wolf it and push people away. So with that being said, let's talk a bit about, like, Stacey has been so gracious to offer our audience a gift. Um, and it will be in the live here when we send it back out. And the link, I'm going to drop the link now as she talks about it. So share with us a little bit about this free gift that you're offering the audience, and how can it support them?
Yeah. Thank you so much. And thanks for allowing me to share.
Yeah.
It's the free guide. It's tips for coping with high functioning anxiety. So we described that earlier. You know, if you feel like that's you, you're holding the walls up for everybody else, but on the inside, you know, it just doesn't feel great.
Yeah.
You know, what do you do about that? So this guide, you know, it's just really going to give you an opportunity. There's a way for you to track, you know, what's going on, where it's coming from, and then some quick strategies and tips that you can implement to help you move through that anxiety. And then you'll be connected with me and subscribe to my newsletter. And I send, you know, weekly information, tips and tricks and strategies, the latest in research, and you know, to just encourage you and hope, you know, to support you to move through all of that.
Yeah, so that, with that being said, can you, I'm going to drop in the comments, what's the best way for, is it text or messaging? Is it through staceybreak.com? Like, how do you want people, are you to reach out to you listeners? And I'll type it in the chat.
Yeah, absolutely. So you can find me through my website. If you take the free gift, you'll have easy access and easy way for you to email me. I read every single message and usually respond within a day. So those are pretty quick. And then you can follow me on Facebook. And that's, I've got Anxiety Detox has its own page there. And so there we are.
Anxiety Detox by Stacey Break. So that is the best way to reach out. So I narrowed, of course, cut and paste. I'll leave this link up for those of you that want to grab it. And I will actually also drop it in the chat as well, so you can grab it there. And reach out to Stacey, because one of the reasons why I step in and I do these lives is because I can support you with anxiety, but it's not 100% my gift. I can do the hormonal piece, I can do the fat loss piece, I can do the gut piece, I can do the nutrition piece, which will make you feel better. And if you feel better, you're going to feel like you look better, and it may support your anxiety. I use herbs and homeopathy and tinctures, but I reach out to individuals like Stacey to have them online, because this is what she does every single day with her patients and her clients. Like, she walks people through anxiety. So I don't know about you, but that's who I'm going to look for if I'm looking for support. Somebody that does this day in and day out. And this is the month that we're talking about anxiety, to give all of you support and techniques. So grab her gift, get on her email list if you're suffering at all.
Mm-hmm.
Because, you know, when we're on those lists, there may be something in her messaging that's like vulnerable that you might not have thought of. And then it touches you and you're like, oh, that's me, you know, and then that's when we start to work really well with who we work with. And I'm sure Stacey's much like me. If you're interested in working with her, I'm sure she'll talk to you first and kind of share with you what the journey is going to look like and what does it look like to work with her? And I mean, I've even allowed people to talk to patients if patients will allow that, if they're just unsure. And I'm sure she has testimonials and things. So I'm just so grateful for the work. We need more people like you, Stacey, to just step up and do this work, because there's just not enough mental health practitioners out there. So kind of give us a recap before we close so that listeners can kind of hear like.
Absolutely. So, first thing, if you're feeling anxious, you are not broken. That is a normal part of the human experience, but you don't have to stay stuck there. Don't let it linger. Don't feel like you're alone. You're not broken. You're not alone. Reach out. We've got you. There is a way, to reconnect with your joy and your freedom, and that's what we want for you.
Yeah, and I want to welcome everybody, and thank you, Michelle, for stepping in and asking questions. And I thank you, all of you that stayed with us again. We will email Stacey the recording so she can get it out to her audience. And again, we apologize for a little mishap we had. And I just am so grateful for you, Stacey. So before we end, we're on a closure now. Is there anything else that's inside of somebody that has a question? Like, I always do this because all of a sudden somebody's like, oh, wait, I should have asked that. Like, we have no judgment.
First of all, you just described me in every situation ever. That's always me. Oh, now I remember my question.
Yeah. Like, it takes a little bit for our brain to catch up because we're so busy listening to like what we're sharing. Okay, I guess like nobody has any other questions at all. Thank you so much for showing up for Health Mastery for Leaders, my online live doc show, where Stacey Brake has just, broken down anxiety. Don't go at mental health and balance alone. Like, we are here to support you, and we are both sending you so much love, light, health, and joy, and calmness, and breathing, and groundedness for your journey as you move through all the changes that we're experiencing. Do you want to say anything before we close?
That was so gorgeous. I wouldn't want to mess that up. That was beautiful. Thank you so much for having this space, for inviting me to be here with you. I'm so glad to connect with you. And let's do it again.
Yeah, have a wonderful day, guys, and enjoy the rest of your day and reach out with questions. So much love.
So much love.